All right, good morning, Liberty North, AP and dual credit psychology. It is virtual Wednesday, April 14th, and we are going to finish up our learning targets for Unit 14, Social Psychology, which I have on the board behind me. I'll post on Canvas as well, but today we're just going to go through learning targets 8 through 12, which might seem like a lot, but it's not going to be too bad because 8, 9, and 10 are pretty much all about group behavior. So I got the notes behind me. I will kind of give you a little warning here a little bit, but the 8, 9, and 10, actually most of these are just vocab terms. So, I think what's important is that you know and can identify the vocab terms that answer each learning target. And that's kind of what we've been doing as we move through the entire chapter and unit of social psychology. There's a lot of vocab. I think the important thing is to know where the vocab should go and what questions it should answer and that are associated with each topic. So I've got a list of your vocab terms up here. So I didn't have room, obviously, to list the vocab and define them. You should be defining all the terms in your AP notebook. But I've at least identified them so you can associate them with the topic. And then, as you define them in your AP notebook as part of your vocab section, hopefully you can make the application there. And then also as you do your define and apply assignment, which you get to pick, which is on Canvas, and you get to pick one of the big influential historical figures, and then choose your 8 terms to find and apply. Okay, which again are going to be Lewin, Ash, Milgram, Zimbardo, and then you can use the Kitty Genovese or Genovese case as well. Okay, which we'll talk about today. Okay, all right. So learning target 8, 9, and 10 are all about group behavior. So learning target 8 says describe the structure and function of different types of group behavior. Number 9 is predict the impact of the presence of groups on individual behavior. So how does the group impact me individually? And then number 10 is describe the processes that contribute to different treatment of group members. So basically discuss group behavior. Okay, how does the group influence the individual? And then lastly, how does the group influence how I treat other members of the group? Okay, all right. Okay, so that's 8, 9, and 10. So behind me, I'll stand up here. I'm going to go shut the door. I'll let you start writing. Behind me, I have AP Learning Target 8, 9, and 10, group behavior. And I've got all the vocab terms in Unit 14, okay, that could answer any one of those 3 elements. Okay, so that could help you answer just what is the difference or what are the standards of group behavior? How does the group influence the individual? And then how does the group influence the way other group members treat each other? Okay. And some of these we have discussed in other questions, all right? But again, you'll find these all in the sections in Unit 14 that are related to group behavior. So there's a big, huge section there, okay? So you got social facilitation, social inhibition, group polarization, de-individuation, diffusion of responsibility, which we have talked about. So again, anytime there's a group, a large group, one of the problems is sometimes work doesn't get done because everybody else thinks that the other people will just take care of it. Okay, that's a big problem here. I think a lot of you know, whether it be an activity, a club, it's great to have a lot of members, but sometimes when you have a lot of members, you kind of lose that accountability and you can diffuse the responsibility. Okay, we also talked about that down here with Kitty Genovese and the bystander effect. Okay. In-group, out-group bias, okay? So if I think favorably of a group or if I think unfavorably of a group, okay? And it doesn't have to be massive, like I think all of us would be. In-group would be Liberty North, out-group would be Liberty High School, and we would all have varying degrees of that, okay? But again, you tend to think favorably of an in-group and unfavorably of an out-group, okay? Reciprocity norm, if I do something for you, scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Social norms, okay, when we've talked plenty about norms as part of the culture standards that kind of, influence conformity, okay, influence, all aspects of psychology. Social traps, prisoner's dilemma, which we've talked about too when we talked about moral dilemmas with Kohlberg. Conflict resolution, which we've talked about, and stress. Okay, we talked about that as part of coping methods. Superordinate goals, ethnocentrism, prejudice, bias, discrimination. And it's kind of good to know the difference between prejudice and discrimination, which the book lays out. Scapegoat theory, stereotype, which we've talked a lot, and mere exposure effect, which we'll talk about when we get to attraction. Okay. All right. So all of these terms, excuse me, can be used to, again, answer 8, 9, and 10. So again, several of these terms can be used to help you describe and understand the structure and function of group behavior. Can also help you understand how the group influences the individual, and can also help you understand how group members influence each other. Okay. All right. So again, if we talked about, if you have a group, it's a subset of your environment, and there are rules, there are norms, there are behavior standards, but groups and individuals, the behavior is different, as you guys know. So we've talked over and over in class too. Your personality can change in a group. Depending on what group you're in, what environment you're in, okay, and your behavior is also influenced by that group, as we've been talking about with obedience, conformity, some of the big studies that we've talked about so far, okay? All right, AP Learning Target number 11, which is basically altruism and aggression, okay? I defined a little bit more here just because I think most people kind of don't understand altruism. So altruism is basically the study of helping behavior. All right. So if a behavior is altruistic, it's helping, and it's usually considered helping for the sense of another person with no selfish gain. Okay. And then we have the debate altruism versus egoism. Okay. Which basically altruism says that there are examples of helping behavior that truly defy the self. They're completely void of any self-motivation and are purely for helping other people. Egoism says that when it comes down to it, all helping behavior, no matter why I help, has a selfish motive, okay, or a gain for the individual in there, okay? And that's a debate that's been out there for ages. I don't think it'll ever be solved, okay? But psychology, in the way it's presented in the book, do kind of agree that there are true altruistic acts of helping behavior in which people just, sacrifice themselves for no personal gain. Okay, not that you can't help for egoistic reasons. Okay, so you can help for two reasons: to totally benefit the other person, or to benefit the other person and also get something for yourself. Okay, all right. Now, the biggest case that we have talked about, which we'll go over tomorrow in class in depth, is the Kitty Genovese case. Okay, so she was the young woman that was murdered on her way home from work in Queens, New York, at like 3 o'clock in the morning. It was 2 to 3 separate attacks. We had, 38 witnesses, somewhere around there, and nobody helped her. And so this again began the attribution theory, right? Which we talked about. People need to understand and to know why this happened, so that we can feel safe and secure in our environment. So, but again, immediately the fundamental attribution error was performed. All right, which everybody was like, well, what's wrong with those people, those 38 people that witnessed this? What's wrong with that? Well, when they didn't find any answers in that, they began to look at the social situation, and that's actually where the answer was found. And so basically studying this case and other cases, unfortunate cases like it, we actually have developed kind of the social situation elements that if they're in place, you're less likely to get help, okay? So what they found is that basically whether or not we get help really depends on the social situation and not so much on the individual, which is what we usually focus on, which is social attribution or the fundamental attribution error, okay? Right? And the big one we came out with, which is the bystander effect, okay? Which there are several elements to that, but basically if we know that there are a lot of people also watching a situation, we're more likely to diffuse the responsibility and just believe that somebody else is going to help. So we talked about now if you're trained in CPR and first aid, and if any one of the steps that you need somebody to call 911, you don't just yell anymore, somebody call 911, because it can be diffused, right? And also if I look around and there's a lot of people there, I'm just going to think somebody else is doing it, right? And so now you have to point to somebody specifically, okay, and say, you call 911. Give that responsibility to one person, all right? And that's part of the research that has been done on helping behavior and the bystander effect. Because when we look at the people who witnessed the murder, we thought we'd find things that were wrong with those people, but we really didn't. They really represented the normal population. Most of them, if not all of them, were good citizens, good people, and it was just the situation that was created that night that set up the environment and the elements that basically just said Kitty was not going to get any help that night. Okay. So this is important to know because I think what it does really well is it says, if you're in a situation where you need help and you look at the situation and you have these elements, you're pretty much on your own. You're going to have to count on just helping yourself because the situation just presents an adverse situation for you to get help. Okay. So we'll study this on Thursday. Okay. All right. And then aggression. Okay. So the book talks about, genetic, environmental, even neuron reasons for aggression. Okay. And how it kind of works physiologically. The one vocab term that's in there that relates to it is called the frustration aggression principle. And basically what it means is that if I'm in a situation where I'm frustrated already and extremely frustrated, I'm more likely to take the jump to aggression. Okay. So again, you can look, especially in athletics. I think they use a lot of sport analogies and examples in the book. If athletes become frustrated either because they're losing, they're not playing well, that frustration already exists. They're more likely to take the jump to aggression. Okay. I've had just a terrible day at work. Nothing's going well. I'm frustrated. I'm more likely to be aggressive. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. And then over here, last thing all by itself on the board here, we have attraction. Okay. All right. And again, this is a pretty interesting subject in the chapter section in the unit. And basically, attraction, there are several elements that are involved in attraction, but it looks at a lot of the cultural, societal elements of attraction. Because again, hopefully, you go to different cultures, different societies, different things are viewed as attractive. I think if you even go to different cities in the United States, you're going to see that certain cities value certain things and different things in attraction. Okay. One of the vocab terms that you do need to know here is the mere exposure effect, which I also had over here. Okay. Which basically says the more that you're exposed to something, the more kind of used to it you get, and then the more attractive it becomes. Okay. So, in Liberty in Missouri, in Liberty North High School, we are exposed to different types of people, and the different types of people that kind of represent the norm or what we normally see is more naturally more likely to become attractive because we see it all the time. And so that's what we view. And if you go to other cultures, it's the same thing. It kind of leads to the same culture. What you're used to seeing in that culture, in that society, becomes natural, becomes more attractive just because you have more exposure to it. Okay. So that's the mere exposure effect. Okay. And societies and cultures really do paint the norm of what's attractive and what's not. TV, media, entertainment, there's just a whole bunch of stuff. But, if we were to list out what's attractive in our country, it's going to represent the norms that we most likely have exposure to. Okay. All right. All right. So that is the learning targets. Okay. So we're going to finish up this unit by Friday. So tomorrow, again, we're going to go over Kitty Genovese case in depth. We'll look at that. We'll talk about helping behavior. And then you're going to start your scavenger hunt, Unit 14 scavenger hunt, which is on Canvas. You can take a look at that. And you can work in groups. You just basically have to do some research and come up with 5 answers. It's kind of more of a fun assignment, but that's going to go in your AP notebook for 50 points. All right, then make sure you're caught up. Make sure you have your AP learning targets, your vocab for this unit. Also, you have your define and apply, which is already on Canvas. If you missed the code word assignment, it's up on my board, but it's also in Canvas for yesterday. Again, as we talked about code words for Milgram, Ash, and Zimbardo. Okay. All right. And then we have one more unit left. Okay. So the end is near. All right. Especially for you seniors. So if you have any questions today, again, I'll be available on Zoom. and you can contact me there and just let me know. All right. If you need anything, just let me know. Have a good day.